Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, right back into where we left off. How are you folks? I can't exactly hear your responses, but you can tell me anyways because your central ego, kind of social appetite will tell me. Hell, tell me in the comments and then I'll actually know, but only in the far
Like,
future.
comment, subscribe.
Yeah, that. Anyways, despite that, we will continue on our way to victory. As we increase our research, our production time and research time and everything time. As we show Eldar bitches where they belong. In the ground, and then chuck a bitch. Anyways, yes, as you can see, I'm managing my Necron Lord's health rather well. Or at least in my opinion, well. If the AI was going to play any better, I actually might have a problem with that. But not at the current moment. Now we have the Greater Summoning Core. I'm going to start working on Tier 2 of the... Now that is actually the thing that Kelton's talking about, where Necron units just get terribly good. And that is that they can build... They do this, which... This is the second thing of it, but it further improves Necron Warrior health and damage. Now right now, they don't usually start out at 30 and 40 and 3140. They start out around 25 to 34. And actually no, that's actually what they start out with, 30 to 40, 31 to 40. But this is attack bonuses, attack bonuses. They get 2 attack bonuses, and the thing that people consider so broken about the Necrons is the fact that they actually start out with far better... They start out with a weapon type that can damage vehicles not that badly.
Aren't they beasts in melee as well?
They're decent in melee, which is why people kind of... They're as good as, say, probably Arrow Boys. Like, they're good as a basic troop choice, but they're not as good as Savage Orc Biggins. Something like that. I don't know. I actually don't know that much about to make that determination, really. Much about Warhammer. Because the stats in that often, to me, are very vague. But anyways, usually, as you can see, like right now, I'm reinforcing very fast. And this is what actually makes Necrons actually broken in the late game. This is actually very balanced, in a way. Because this is the only thing that actually makes them broken, and this is if you don't harass your enemy. And if you don't harass any race, really they're broken. They're going to be broken eventually, because if you don't harass any race and allow them to do what they want to do, they're going to kill you. With the Necrons, it's pretty much more equal to, because they have this thing that's called time bonus. And by building an obelisk, I don't generate requisition. I generate time bonus, because I only rely on power. But to make me require command posts, because it would make no sense for Necrons to actually require requisition, ignore the global maps required for requisition. That's still, their attempt at like a civilization sort of thing that people didn't exactly respond well to, and thus they kind of stopped doing it. Well, actually, no, they kind of kept doing it, didn't they? Dawn of War 2. But regardless, we are dealing with the Eldar Farce here. The AI likes to, what I like to call, check up on you every so often with units, by killing units against you. But anyways, yes, this is the Resurrection Orb, and it requires, see, all these inquiry and engage monolith, need 400. Oh yeah, because I just did that. But yeah, this requires an engage monolith. I think that requires an engage monolith. This requires you to have the second tier add-on, the first tier add-on anyway, of the monolith. If I just built this right away, I would have gotten the Chromonatron and the Phase Shifter. These are essentially war gear for your Necron Lord that they pretty much added to every hero in Dawn of War 2, because people loved being able to customize their Necron Lord to how they wanted to play. That's a fucking Harlequin right there. There we go. Yeah, Harlequins are very disruptive units that tend to win just on a baseline of disruption. Yeah, the Necron Lord fell, so let's get him up again. Eventually. Probably build some Tomb Spiders. When I first started playing this game, I honestly really didn't like tomb spiders, but they actually serve quite a bit of use. Wraith Lord, hi, how's it going? I need to build anti-vehicle.
Aren't tomb spiders like the one building unit that's actually kind of okay?
No, tomb spiders don't build anything at all.
Oh, wait, no, they only capture points.
No, they don't at all.
Oh,
Tomb spiders are the giant spider things that hit people and recover Necron units.
I'm thinking of scarabs.
Once again, useful things.
It's been forever since I played this game, and there's tomb spiders and tomb scarabs. They're both bugs. Well, one's an arachnid.
Well, one's a builder scarab, aka builder, and the other one's, you know, not.
I remember something about the... Oh, I know, that was the Sisters of Battle building unit, because I could just run over to the enemy base and stop them from producing things.
I don't know what you're talking about. The builder scarab still stops things. He can capture points. That's kind of his whole thing.
Yeah.
The builder scarab, you might have noticed with the rangers that I engaged in the last part. The rangers that I engaged in the last part were detected for some reason. That's because builder scarabs detects infiltrated units, can reinforce, and capture, and they're the only Necron unit that can capture strategic points. That is why... What?
It's the Eldar Bone Singer that can run up to the enemy base, especially Necrons, and just use one of their abilities on it and prevent them from building anything ever.
Yeah, that's in Tomb.
Yeah.
But I believe that's really only truly effective against the Necrons.
Yeah, since they only have one building that can do anything.
Yeah, but that's why in multiplayer you often see Necrons build multiple monoliths.
Yeah.
That way they can't... Like, that's why in that one... I remember one time I faced a guy in multiplayer after coming back to the game after a long time, and I was like, oh yeah, Eldar aren't that broken. I don't know why people bitch about them, and they say they're like ultra power, they ultra counter Necrons, and I sat there and I'm like... And I was like, yeah, right. And that guy just ran up to my Necron monolith and stopped me from making anything, and constantly did fleet of foot micromanagement to make it so I couldn't build anything. Oh, I had to constantly be chasing these units, otherwise he'd be shooting at me constantly. Which was very impressive. Which I'm never kind of ashamed to lose as long as I learn something. There we go. And as you can see, the Tomb Spider is actually quite the decent melee combatant. It can have this range damage that it speaks of, but that's only if you give it the particle projector. But what it tells you is that it will reduce the number of melee attacks that the Tomb Spider can make, which will overall reduce its melee effectiveness. And it's mainly anti-infantry, that particle projector. And the main reason why you actually get the particle projector is so that your Tomb Spider will stay in the background, for fuck's sake. Because you actually want it to do that. And this is another part of the Necrons that people get really pissy about. I'm gonna stop my Tomb Spider, and it's going to begin to harvest Necron bodies. Now the Necrons that I have lost so far did not actually vanish from the battlefield, as I have persistent bodies on. No, that's actually just a Necron thing as a whole. As Necrons, you have persistent bodies on all the time because there is always Necron bodies, and they are recovered over time. I don't actually have any Necron bodies to recover other than that one, except for this one, if he decides to actually stay down. Nope, there's the Necron warrior getting back up. A percentage chance on when they get knocked down that they can get right the fuck back up. I'm just going to engage this Wraith Lord in melee, pull back these Necron units, and reinforce. You can actually have a glitch happen where the Necron warrior where you'll actually reinforce your Necron warriors faster than they can get up, at which point there is a point where you could have a squad of 9, where the standard squad size is 8.
Yeah,
but it's not that big of importance.
The rule for Necrons getting back up in the tabletop used to be called We'll Be Back, but then they almost got sued, so they changed the resurrection protocols.
Why would they almost get sued for something that's such a general term?
But no, it was an obvious Terminator reference, to the point where someone could sue them, or was threatening to sue them over it.
That's kind of heretical, in my opinion. I don't
Yeah, and
understand.
ironic.
Like, I don't
considering how-
understand why, like, that would be such a reference. It's literally, like, just kind of general phrase.
Yeah, and it's ironic considering how Sue happy Games Workshop is. They
That's probably why. Because
They
probably
tried to patent a pile of... Well, they... Not patent. They tried to copyright a pile of skulls.
Anyways, there's a limited amount, like Builder Scarabs can't mass repair units, as pretty much any race can't mass repair units. You can only use one builder unit to repair a unit. That way, basically, vehicles actually either have, you know, to die or downtime. This is, which a lot of people actually think vehicles, well, one of my friends anyway, thought vehicles in Dawn of War and in Dawn of War 2 were quite stupid in the sense that they could be easily taken down by, say, a crack rocket or, say, a las cannon, as they would only survive a couple shots. But the thing that kind of combats that is vehicles are incredibly powerful if you just let them do their thing. They die to only what counters them. And yes, like in Dawn of War 2, you can build a Space Marine squad, and that can get an upgrade to get a missile launcher that can do 100 damage to the to a vehicle unit. But that is basically what is known as a soft counter, as any vehicle could walk away or disrupt that unit by simply meleeing it or shooting it in some cases, as, say, a Falcon grav tank sort of prism or a fire prism could actually disrupt a range squad. Now what you saw I just dealt with there was my god. What I actually dealt with right there was a listening post. Now you guys may be wondering what the Farseer is doing there, and like every time she does something, why the hell suddenly my units become under attack by the weather. It's because psionic abilities are in Eldar's finesse. Especially, like, every Eldar is technically in the lore psionically powerful to an extent. The thing is that they are only so powerful as they allow themselves to be, I suppose, or how far they want to improve themselves. At least from what I remember. Anyways, I used the Tomb Spider before it died there to summon a unit of Flaybones. These units are usually shock troops that have an ability to constantly reduce morale, but they dish out a shit ton of melee damage. Now you may be asking, oh, well, that sounds like a lot of good things. What are actually the weaknesses of Flaybones? They're incredibly slow.
They're slow as fuck.
But they can deploy to crawl out of the ground, which is quite effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Essentially the same as deep striking and Terminators.
Yeah, but while they're crawling out of the ground, it takes them quite actually a long time to crawl out of the ground, and they have no morale, as you can see, which technically no Necron units should have morale. But you know, games have to be balanced, and I'm fully willing to accept certain gamey things that have to be because.
But now, if they lose all their morale, they should start crumbling.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, that doesn't.
Oh, you're making a Vampire Kraut reference. How dare you? Wrong game.
You say Vampire Kraut?
Vampire Count, and I just kind of had a bit too much spit in my mouth.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm actually gonna upgrade to the particle projectors now because I do want my Tomb Spiders to stay out of the fight for the most part. Now, for every Necron monolith that you make, you will actually be granted 4 more base turrets. I believe this is the case for every race, but for the... Now, the whole thing is, for every other structure, you can usually only build it in a round, like command posts and say your base structure. For Necron, for turrets for all races, you can build them anywhere. And that actually makes them quite effective in the sense that you can build them anywhere. But except for, say, on top of take and hold points like this critical location. The main thing
take and hold victory in
Well, you gonna finish that
5
statement?
minutes.
Okay, why did you... Okay, whatever, you kind of delayed
My
me.
brain stopped working for about 2 seconds.
Anyways, usually every race requires power generators. The Necron power generators start out at low cost since they need those to kind of provide them with basic resources. They go from I believe it's 40, 60, 80, 90, 120, 175, and then 200, something like that. That's rough. That's a rough estimate. Anyways, the thermoplasma generator is also something all other races can do, which it's these certain slag deposits on the map can have something placed down on them that effectively allows them to harvest a lot more power, but these sites are always really exposed. As such, I will defend them with turrets. And as you can see, I couldn't normally build a lot of these units, but I am upgrading these every time. I am keeping them upgraded, and they took out a listening post. As you can see, the Necron flag that I would usually put up there is actually this energy symbol that is only a Necron thing. Which kind of makes them less customizable, in the sense that you have that energy symbol always instead of a flag symbol, or a banner. As you can see, where I was having a bit of trouble with these Eldar, now they are not resisting me at all. Now here's a fun fact. You actually can... Now despite the whole thing of, oh, if your commander isn't there, you can't actually have... Your commander won't spawn at the beginning. If you ever have to defend a territory and you spawn your commander, he will have all the benefits of your actual global commander instead of just being a new commander like normally he would be in a normal multiplayer match. Now, here's the thing. What I'm doing to all these Gauss turrets is upgrading them to Tier 2. The problem is that with upgrading them to Tier 2, it makes them weaker against infantry, but actually stronger against vehicles and buildings. If you ever wanted to, build turrets at your enemy's base, I suppose, to siege them. Which some Necron players actually do that, essentially. But it's more often used to establish a point where you can constantly reinforce and engage from, slowly killing your enemy. But what I'm going to do, actually, is, one, build that Tomb Spider back. And here's another thing that actually is part of the Necron weakness is... This was added in, I believe, Soulstorm, that power generators decay over time and generate less power. Now, the thing about that is, there is a little bit of a workaround for that. Now, you can only build a limited amount of generators for every race, based on how many, like, big command structures like the monolith you have. But for like, hey, these are lower producing generators, you can always kill them by pressing. You can select them and hit delete, and it will destroy the structure, as you saw me do earlier with the second summoning core I built like a jobber. But here are my... As you can see, they're constantly getting low morale because, as you can see, the morale is constantly being reduced, 1, by being shot at, 2, by engaging with a superior force, and 3, by... Well, I don't know if it works like Warhammer in the sense of engaging with superior force, but if they're drastically losing a battle, they will lose morale. They lose morale just by being shot at, but they are losing a consistent amount of morale because they are being hit. Well, just being around the flesh-covered, flayed ones is enough to terrify them into losing morale. And this is the part that people think is broken about Necrons. See these units that are in melee? They don't have nearly high enough melee damage to contend with the Necron warriors, so I'm going to go ahead and engage them with the Necron warriors in melee to secure my victory more. Because I can actually lose versus the Warp Spiders in melee, and I don't want to do that, to say the least. Now what we'll do is, they can warp away, which is what he did there. They actually do a good amount of anti-infantry damage. And what we're going to do is keep on switching our units from melee to range, actually, as it suits us. I'm going to go to the, right now, the Forbidden Archive and actually upgrade a few things, while trying to keep an eye on this battle over here. Which, one thing people didn't like in Dawn of War 1, or at least a certain number of people didn't like in Dawn of War 1, is that units, the battle mechanics for the game often were to gather, just secure enough points and then re-engage with a bunch of units, because you could always reinforce units in battle. Meanwhile, in the Dawn of War 2 franchise, they tried to have it so you could only reinforce back at your base. A worthy endeavor, but I actually am going to show you a little bit of a Necron only thing, where it is to, you can't do it to turrets, but you can just instantly redeploy your army out of harm's way. You may have seen this in, say, StarCraft, where you can deploy your units out of combat immediately from the mass recall of the mothership. Now, as you can see, when that Tomb Spider came back, it actually lost its particle projector. We're going to upgrade that again. Now, this Necron warrior unit actually immediately followed its orders that it was last given and went back into combat. So it started marching towards, but we're going to stop it from doing that. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set a 10-minute timer, because we actually have been running for quite some time without keeping track of how long we're running. Because recording is important, and actually splitting up your content is important for a successful YouTube channel, because as much as you want to give as much as to the people as you can and trying to give it your all, making, as I learned, I remember one night, making a 9-hour video doesn't matter if it doesn't upload well. Anyways, we're out of turrets that we can make, and we can no longer build any monoliths because we have a limit of 3. I've already got this unit, these workers queued up to build some generators. However, let's give them some help by assigning another unit to build some more generators as well. Now, you may have seen earlier that the... Oh, did my flayed ones actually die? Yeah, that happened. Anyways, what I'm going to do is to build the anti-vehicle option for the Necrons, which is the Immortals. They're actually shitty versus infantry. They're a lot more flimsy than the Necron warriors. They're shitty versus infantry, except for in melee. In melee, they do a massive amount of damage. But the problem is they're so flimsy that you practically never want to use them in melee. As you can see, they use their little spine attachment here to connect to a Gauss weapon that is far more intense. As they would say, they say that the elite warriors were among the first to swear allegiance to the Citan gods, and they are equipped with Gauss blasters that are calibrated to penetrate vehicle and building armor, only effective against infantry and melee combat like Necron warriors. They may also... That's effectively this. They can pick themselves up, they can pick themselves up, they can pick themselves up. These can't pick themselves, all these can't pick themselves up except for the Wraith, and the Tomb Spider can't pick themselves up. Catan. And that is effectively how it is. I'm going to say that, however, I damn well please, because I think Catan sounds stupid. Because this isn't, like, Settlers of Catan. So there. Eat a monkey scrotum. Anyways, we're probably going to build more generators. We're trying to maintain the war front, essentially. And by maintaining the war front, I mean build more generators and build more generators and build more generators. Now, we actually need to upgrade our time bonus, and we do that by, and once you upgrade, when you upgrade your listening posts for other races, a lot of the times you're upgrading them to be more defensible and get more requisition. For the Necrons, it's often to the only the tier 3 upgrade for the tier 1 being the original listening post that you built. The tier 3 upgrade is the one that actually gives you the defensible sort of the ability to have a turret on top. Meanwhile, the usual thing is you build this little cube on top, which gives you the Wailing Terror ability, which inflicts damage and knocks enemy squads, and it instantly breaks morale, which morale is the blue bar you see beneath the enemy unit. I'm hoping that the Necron Lord is going to be able to tough it out against them, but we need to actually upgrade some stuff in the phylactery. I want him to be better against range units, so we'll upgrade him with the thing that makes him harder to hit, or it gives him some resistance to that. Nightmare Shroud, probably not. They were up against Eldar, so I think we'll upgrade the probably the Solar Pulse and the Chromonatron, or not. Let's see here. Veil of Darkness. Wailing Terror is one thing that the Nightmare Shroud gives you a terrorize ability that is quite useful for units that usually require morale to stand, like Tau. Well, a lot of units actually require morale to do a lot of things, because morale reduces your effectiveness in a combat, like it does in Total War, but not so much sort of like routing and stuff. But units will continue to fight as long as you want them to, but will only serve to fall more and more as they are less combat effective. As you can see, our Immortals actually are tearing through the Wraithguard much more effectively. Problem is we actually need a melee unit to occupy the Warp Spiders. Now the problem is while I'm trying to explain, I'm actually kind of losing. So we're gonna focus up a bit. We've got our nearly 100% time bonus here. Problem is our enemy is producing a lot more than we are. I'm gonna salvage what I can from the victory here. Looks like he did manage, with the upgrades, to reduce the enemy's effectiveness enough to get them killed. Now, since the Necron units the Necron usually doesn't have a relic unit right off the bat, or at least a effective one, I'm going to use the Nightbringer. Now, this is another thing that people bitch about for the Necrons quite a bit, and I can see some of this being liable. This is the Nightbringer. The Necron Lord can turn into the Nightbringer for 5 minutes, or the Deceiver, but right now we're using the Nightbringer. I'll probably explain the Deceiver later, because the Deceiver is the far better option like 90% of the time. But the Nightbringer is the main damage-dealing form of that the Necron Lord can take. Which he can take this form for 5 minutes. This is completely invulnerable. There is no way to actually fight the Nightbringer and actually do damage to him. He is completely invulnerable. But after 5 minutes, he goes away. And then it's set on a cooldown. Plasma generator is completely decayed, which means we're getting less income from these. As you can see, it used to be 6, well, it used to be 7. A full one right here produces 10. So what I'm going to do is kill some of these. And basically produce more generators. But have I upgraded the second tier? No, I haven't. These basically are static upgrades. Usually these would cost a lot of requisition. It kind of balances out by costing a lot of requisition to make more power, or costing a lot of power to make more requisition. Other races have those, meanwhile, we only have power. Our population's full, which you have a cap. We're at the full of we actually increased our cap by building listening posts. Space Marines increase it by doing an upgrade. Meanwhile, I actually don't need a power core here. Space Marines do it by Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines increase their supply by building an upgrade on their main stronghold, or their HQ, as it were. But the Tau do it by building their building their primary armory, which is the Path to Enlightenment. I believe that... Yeah, Keldon has muted his mic for some reason. I don't know why. Who knows with that kid half the time?
Markiplier.
Well, there you have it, folks. Markiplier. Anyways, I'm going to build the... Now, these are the heavy destroyers. They're essentially fast-moving skimmer units that can... And by skimmer units, I mean, look, they float around. They don't use wheels, they just float. These ones are for anti-infantry. They do good against infantry and heavy infantry. These do good against vehicles and buildings. These do good against infantry and heavy infantry. Infantry and heavy infantry. Vehicles and aircraft. Infantry and heavy infantry. You can see that, and these are heavy infantry. Most of the Necron units, that is actually a weakness of the Necron units, is most of their units, besides their vehicles, are actually heavy infantry. So as opposed to having to build light infantry counters and heavy infantry counters, the enemy only has to build heavy infantry counters. The thing with that is, though, is heavy infantry tend to be really effective. Now what I think we're actually going to do is build the Veil of Darkness, which is going to make it so every unit close to our Necron Lord turns invisible and needs to be detected by a detector unit. And by invisible, I mean infiltrated. Which, in Dawn of War 2, they changed infiltration, in the games at least, to be more like infiltration, aka infiltration is more like you're hiding in a bush rather than being cloaked completely. However, I much prefer this form of it where you are cloaked completely, because I never found it really annoying to have to build a detector unit. As other games, it was invisibility was the whole thing. Invisibility being the whole thing is, hey, if you're going to be invisible, might as well require the enemy to do something to actually see you, right? Meanwhile, in Dawn of War 2, the actual requirements of...
Except if you have units with splash damage, like Basilisk, in which case you just attack ground where the bluey glow lights are.
Which, that honestly only works if you have Basilisk, which if you had Basilisk, why don't you just build the stealth unit? I mean, why don't you just build the infiltrating, the detector unit? As you can see, the Wraith Lord now is having to deal with the small AoE that the Necron Lord makes invisible. See, as he goes to attack the unit, I bring the Necron Lord over, and now he can't attack that unit. So he has to keep on switching to these back targets that are now invisible, and he's getting really confused and probably pissed off. But he's an AI, so he doesn't get pissed off. People, however, get pissed off. Because people get menstrual, and people always get menstrual. Anyways, I'm going to blind them with the Solar Pulse. This blinds them and gives me a periodically unleashes massive photon. All infiltrated units are... Yeah, it reveals infiltrated units in that area, and it also stops them from attacking in ranged for a very short time. It's actually... Like right now, they're unblinded, but it doesn't matter. As you can see, he's shooting. He's close enough to be affected, but he's shooting because it only blinds for about 5 seconds. Anyways, I'm going to stop the recording... Well, blah. Stop the recording here and pick it up right now in the next part. That's 33 minutes. I spoil you people. Anyways, Reaper God 36, signing off.